Today I have a profound revelation for you that I know the majority are not going to want to miss. It's from God, something I've been holding on to for quite a while, almost a year now. I'm going to give that to you in this video, give you some updates, and probably rant a little bit. Now, for those of you that all you want to know is the revelation, jump to the end of the video. You're going to hear something that's extremely profound, so much so I didn't want to give it. And that sounds almost contradictory, but I have kind of already given it, but not as you're going to see it. The end result's the same. So I chose to hold this, even though I've talked to other people about it, and they see it clearly. And you will too, but again, if that's all you want to hear, just go to the end of the video and skip all this, because I'm going to rant. I'm going to give you some updates regarding what's going on television and the ministry. And I'm going to show you some things you probably don't, maybe not want to know. Just saying. So really buckle up. If you want to hear truth, then listen to everything I have to say. If you don't, then I'll see you at the end of the video. A few years ago, I was on television. I want to actually go back several years. Ended in 2021. But I was on for a couple years, and I had I was with an agency, the largest television media agency that handles all the ministries. Christian Media Agency. They handle all the major ministries that are on television. They're all with them. And these people get you onto various networks, all the Christian networks. Everybody knows this agency. I don't need to start dropping names, and I don't need to start telling you all the ministries. If you watch anything on television, they're with these people. They're with them. And this media agency had such pull. Excuse me. They had such pull that they simply, what I had forgotten all about. I came back to television. I thought, I don't need them this time, even though they'll get you better prices and you can get by yourself, and they'll make sure you get in where they want you and what's appropriate. They wound up getting me in where other ministries were of like mind. Same theme. End time insights next to or among other end time ministries, right? Because you want the same. I've forgotten all about this. You want to be in where the audience is that's watching this type of theme, whatever. I mean, I don't care. There's all kinds of areas to the gospel, but there is the prophetic end time ministry type ministries that are out there. And I didn't realize how important that was until this time around. I know some of you have probably looked, and I've discussed it with people, and they say YouTube's not going anywhere. And you're right, YouTube ain't going anywhere. In fact, Cochran Ministries is not a threat. Excuse me, I have kind of a sore throat. Cochran Ministries is not a threat to anybody else. Now when you only got a couple people that's going to watch this video, or any video. I mean, it can be more, but so it's not a threat, right? So I can go on saying everything I want to, and I will not bother these other ministries. With me so far? Why worry about a little 7,000 subscriber ministry when yours has thousands upon thousands, and I'm not even a voice? Unless, like that happened previously with the media agency, they stuck me down into the thick of other similar themed ministries. You all know the names. And that's the benefit of having an agency that has that pull. They say, we would like to have him right here in the slot. And they can get you right there in the slot where I'm a nobody. In fact, I had one network tell me, you're not blah, blah, the name of the agency. Kind of was, I didn't really realize how important it would be to have an agency that has everybody under their belt and they're all their clients. It's kind of crazy. So networks listen when the agency that has all their, the patrons there. Anyway, so like last time, I was stuck down, I can give you the names, right in the middle of other end time ministries. And here's the thing that matters. Not only do you hijack those other ministries' following, right? See, on YouTube, they'll never even see this. But the television ministries watch this. It's really silly. I don't want to get into it. They watch you when you are a direct, you can call it a competitor, a threat. If you're in the same and you're contradicting what they say, you're a competitor, and they get to go up against you. And when you do this, like WHT, you got WHT. At one point, then I was plopped down right in between Perry Stone and Irvin Baxter. Perry Stone was my lead in. Irvin Baxter was the lead out. Now, I know you don't think lead in, lead out matters, but it really does, because whoever's audience was Perry Stone's, I hijack his audience. And I know it doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but you got people who surf channels. It's kind of the way TV goes. In fact, kind of the same thing on YouTube. You look for, if you got this mindset, I'm watching blah, and there comes the same kind of ministry on right after. That becomes my audience. And you know what? The ministry before me or after me pays attention, notices it. I can't tell you all the wars that I had. I'm not going to tell you the stories. I'd waste your time. Some of them are actually unbelievable and something I even had to convince my wife of yesterday. Too incredible to think that this is really what happened and that happened. And so it's a big deal. Listen to me. It's a big deal if you get plopped down right next to another ministry. Oh, they're paying for that slot. You come up right behind them and you contradict or show them something that the audience may have been believing otherwise. Like the graph. I'm not going to tell you all the stories that happened with Irvin Baxter, but we went head to head. Conversations, audiences, his audience would call in to us. And if they called into us, then they called into him. You know that. I mean, I never asked him, but we knew it was happening and we saw certain things happen. And here's the thing. Not only do you get their audience, like one person says, you guys, you talking about Irvin Baxter, you two should go, have a debate about the trumpets. His belief, the trumpets, we're about to have the sixth trumpet happen. And some of you have followed Irvin Baxter's ministry and who's still doing it. And you're thinking the sixth trumpet is about to happen, aren't you? Let me show you a graphic down below of the trumpets. The 7-year period are seen in the trumpets. And if you've watched enough of these teachings on YouTube and or watched the 9 videos, the first 9 chapters I have of the graph, you now know the truth about the trumpets. Anyway, the point is, I was affecting his ministry, not just his following, but he had to answer to the trumpets, the graph. It's a big deal, folks, when you actually are now not just, it's not so much as they're following, now they have to answer to God. And I could go on about this, and I'm not going to go on. I'm just going to tell you, Irvin Baxter is no longer here with us. That's a story some of you would kind of wait on, and I'm not really going to get into. In fact, I'm already dancing around, and I wish I didn't. May even edit this out. The point is, we went round and round, and he did start converting, changing his message. And I want that, folks. See, here on YouTube, it doesn't matter. But when you put your show right down before theirs or after theirs immediately, the people of the audience that they were watching, that show that they were watching, becomes my audience. Now I have it's the same pulpit, right? I mean, they get up behind the pulpit of that network and they teach, and then Steve Cochran gets right back up on the same pulpit. There's the same audience. So then this ministry does affect that because they're paying to be there. I'm not going to tell you a little funny story that I won't get into, but even after 6 months of being on TV in that particular side between Perry Stone and Irvin Baxter moved his show. He had been there several years. I was aware of several years. Could have been a lot longer than that. You don't just move your show unless your audience, and that was happening. We were people. And the point is this, folks. We are in the next month going to change my blunder and going to move right behind where we used to be. We used to be behind Jim Bakker. I'll tell you stories about that too, and I don't want to get into it. But we're going to be right behind Jim Bakker's show on Impact. We're now in the evening. We're now going to go 1:30 Thursdays. You that are watching, be sure of the change. We're now going to be off of WHT and off of CTN, though we're going to take on God TV. That's two networks, two massive major networks right there. But we're losing CTN and WHT because the audience ain't there, and I had the wrong slots anyway. I did it wrong. Just to clarify. I have an opportunity now, and I know some of you think the Raven, where's the Raven? You hear all about the Raven. The Raven made all this happen, folks. What you see here, the Raven did. This is a professional television studio. Now, everybody else who gives, I can count on one hand. Now, I'm not saying there's never any more than 5 people. These are people who give regularly. They're not like the Raven, but I love every one of you who do. There's been one person on this hand. They gave a few times. They gave a couple $1,000s, and we used it. It was specifically going for the church and in here. That's where the money went. That's where the money goes, folks. I don't talk about it a lot. In fact, I only talk about money maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 years. I had my credit cards maxed out here recently. I had to get a lens that's sitting over there. You don't see all the camera equipment, all the different professional stuff that's sitting behind this lens. Cameras, the lights, everything. But a lens, and I had a slider that's over there. A slider makes the cameras go back. I had to go maxing out my credit cards. That's where the money goes. I don't buy a second vehicle and all these other things that other ministries. I'm just one guy. But I'm making a point. I want to thank you who have given. But I'm making a plea today. I can get on. I'm being offered. End Time Insights is being offered to be on 2 other networks. One's minimal. It's minimal, but it'll make a point. What do I mean by minimal? Listen to that. I tried to explain how being a lead in or lead out to any other ministry, they know you're there. They automatically know you're there, and you get their audience. I can tell you story after story after story. And I don't know how much I want to say about this, but there is a network that Jim Bakker has that I was before refused. Apparently now, due to this agency, is able to get me in, and they may not even know until after the fact. And I know I have Jim Bakker staff watching at times. Ministries watch other ministries, folks, especially television ministries. Now that I'm going to be behind Jim Bakker Thursday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm right in his face. I get his audience. I could be on his network right after his show, his own network, PTL. You see, why does that matter? Being on his own network? If you're on a network, every other minister knows who's there. In fact, I'm going to show you a webpage. I'm going to show you who's on the Jim Bakker network, and it's minimal cost. I'll probably do a graphic. I don't know if you're seeing it or not. Hope I can find it. Every minister knows about these other ministers. They all know who's on the network, and they pay to be there. Jim Bakker network is simple. It doesn't cost a lot at all, folks. Only about, $350 a show. $350 a show. The audience isn't big. Then what's the point? Yeah, you do get the same audience, and they are aware of it. And every ministry on this network who pays to be there will now have to recognize and answer to also the graph and whatever I present, End Time Insights. And however they want to rectify it, it's up to them. But I can tell you of which I keep dancing around, and I'm not going to do it. I just can't. I got story after story of the warfare that'll go on between ministries, and it is there, not YouTube, it is there on this battleground, on their own battleground. Do you realize what I'm saying? To being on the PTL network and being all those ministers, and Jim Bakker behind his own show on his own network, which I don't think he makes decisions anymore. Before I wasn't allowed on. They rejected me because of the warfare we had had. Now, if any of his staff's watching, they may run out and say, hey, he wants to be on, because that's only like $1,500 a month, or about $1,700 if it's like a 5-week month. There's another network I can be on, and it is massive. What I'm saying is this, folks. The Raven has agreed to 2 networks, but the man carries a heavy load. There's going to be a couple thousand people watching this video. I'm not, if you realize if we had 10%, 10 people out of 100 respond, it would be insane the amount that could be done with this message, that could be done with this message. 5%, that would be 100 people. 5% of 2,000 people that are going to watch is 100 people. 2%, 2.5% would be 50 people. 1% would be 20 people. And to believe it or not, I know some of you, when they start making pleas like this, and even though it's only once a year that I do something like this, or whatever it is very rare. I don't even get 1%. I think everybody else thinks everybody else is doing it. Everybody else is carrying the load. No, the Raven carries the load. But there are a handful of other people, and if it ever goes past 5, I could maybe make it onto one other hand, and they give maybe once a year, maybe every 2 years or 3 years, and it's still minimal, $125, something like that. Not 125, but 100 or 25, 20. What helps? I love you all who do that. I just wish, to listen to me. I wish you would catch the burden. If there was somebody else that had the graph. Now I know you've probably become callous to it. You've seen the timeline. You know the trumpets and how and how Revelation really is laid out. But you'll have other people teaching on Revelation. You have other people teaching on Daniel. And I'm telling you who Trump is. And I'm the only guy that I'm aware of on television that's going to say it's not 3.5 more years of grace and a reprieve. As people are prophesying. One guy here recently...
I've seen things coming for this nation. I was standing in a Mario Murillo crusade. I was standing there and a holy roar broke out. You know, when you're in a meeting and the roar of God begins to just shake the place, and it's holy and it's powerful and you're caught up in it. We were in Colorado Springs. Mario's doing what he does. You know, you there, sir, there are 5 places in your body that God is healing. And I'm just like, oh, Mufasa, Mario, get him. You know, and I'm in this meeting, and then suddenly, as this roar breaks out, I hear the whisper of the Lord pull me back. And here's what he said to me. This is not the end. It's not the end. And I got a snapshot of like a couple decades out, looking back, and I saw a newspaper headline that said, God saved America.
2 decades from now, he saw America, God saved America. If Trump is who I'm telling you it is, there is no 2 decades from here that God saved America. You're going to want to hear the revelation I got in a minute. I'm the only crazy man, crazy enough to actually say what he believes and not tickle the ears of everybody. You really know I'm not about to tickle your ears in a second. And I'll get out there and I'll say it. Now, again, if somebody else was saying these things, if somebody else told you when the New Jerusalem's really going to come down, who they are in 44K are and who they're not. They're not aliens. They're not some kinds of different. If somebody else was out there saying it, then I guess you don't need I become a nobody. You don't need me at all. But other people aren't saying these things, so I'm saying, I'll do it. I'll go. I have the message, and you can send me. So yeah, you can just 10 of you, 15 of you, if you were to give $100, that's the Jim Baker Network right there. 15 people out of 2,000 that are going to watch. Some of you can give a couple hundred. Some of you give 300. Some of you do give, like on this hand, and we just use funds as we're needed. I don't know. I may have just put my foot in my mouth and destroyed the PTL network, depending on who's watching. Really, the feuds were bad. Phone calls, and I'm going to get into it. Communications. But we could be on the network, or we could be on another one. The Raven does. He said this. You could get behind it and you could support. Now's the time, folks. Now is the time to give. give to this message. Now, I know some of you say, we're already giving to other people. You want to know something? If you watched the last show, television show that we did, that's on YouTube, it's a previous show to this, previous video to this, I should say. I dance around because it's TV. I only can say so much. The next show, you might want to watch this week's show on TV if you're not watching it. And it's going to be this. Listen to me for a minute. I pointed out, folks, how I don't believe anybody would want to back or support something that is detrimental to the soul. I mentioned it before. If you've watched the videos and whatever, there is permissible false doctrine, and then there's false doctrine that is not permissible. It's not permissible. And I tried to make some points, and it is this. I hear people all the time, they say they love God. It's irrelevant. I can show Jehovah's Witnesses love God, and they're the sweetest people walking the planet that I'm aware of, some of the sweetest people. Doesn't matter. And you know that their doctrine will send somebody to hell because they don't believe Jesus is the Christ. Elizabeth pointed out that Islam does the same thing. They love God. They're ready to die for it. They pray 5 times a day. They make some Christians look silly. Put us to shame. Love God with all their heart. Allah. And they believe with everything, but that doesn't matter. Well-intentioned people, well-intended doctrines, intentions is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. And if I was to ask you, do you give the Jehovah's Witnesses? And you're saying no. I hear you, fine. Why? Why don't you give the Jehovah's Witnesses? I think that it's like a no-brainer, because the doctrine is detrimental to the soul, right? Doctrine that harms a soul is not permissible, nor should you stand behind it. Listen to me for a minute. You're not going to see the next show that I did. It's going to be on TV. I'm not going to put it onto YouTube. You've heard me say this. Please listen carefully. It's really ignorance, lack of knowledge that causes God's people to perish. But I'm going to tell you, I'll go one a little farther. Just because you don't want to know doesn't excuse it. Just because you didn't know something doesn't make it go away. Just because you don't believe something doesn't make it wrong or a lie. Right? Truth is truth. It's kind of the way it goes. I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to get it. The point is, I talked about it in the next show. It's going to be on television. You should watch it. 2 Thessalonians, you've heard this. Chapter 2, I talk about how there is a falling away before the revealing. How, while the falling away is happening before the revealing, there's a restrainer holding back the revealing. So while the falling away is happening, according to the context, the restrainer is active, holding back the revealing while there's a falling away. I've attempted to make sense of it for everybody, just looking at the context. Why is there a falling away? Because of the restrainer holding back the revealing of the Antichrist. You don't have to look outside of the context. It's right there. If you understand what people are pushing, listen to me, this is the part where it's going to be hard to hear. People are pushing Daniel 9:27 is the Antichrist. And I am going to tell you, as I've told you before, it's not the Antichrist. And that's the biggest mistake. And yet all of mainstream, virtually everybody you can talk to, even the unsaved, even your dog is aware of this. What? Yeah, Rover's well aware of, and they can tell you, here's what happens in the end. There's going to be a period of 7 years, and this man's going to stand up, and he's going to rule the world, and he's going to create a peace treaty with Israel for 7 years, mind you, and all this other stuff based on Daniel 9:27. And there are 7 hard points extrapolated from Daniel 9:27 that I say both in Daniel and in the graph, and I'm not pushing the book. I'm just trying to tell you what's happening here. Listen. 7 points, hard points that come solely from Daniel 9:27. But the first one is, he stands up in the beginning of all this craziness. When Israel's going to get attacked, as you're going to watch happen. Everybody's going to be yelling from the top of their lungs, here comes the Antichrist. And if it's not he, who the he is, he's not going to be there. No peace treaty is going to be there, and the rest of the stuff that follows is not going to be there, folks. Hear this part for a minute. But everybody's going to be looking for it, and that's all you're going to hear from people you support. You're going to see nobody's showing up because the revealing's being held back. Where everybody expected him to show up, it's being held back. And there's a falling away at that time while he's being held back. Falling away. And here's a scripture that I talked about in the show that I had Elizabeth read. I believe it was verse 11. Hear me. Here's the part that I didn't talk about in the show. Well, yeah, I did, but I've not talked about here on YouTube before. For God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. You'll hear people tell you the lie is there, everybody's going to buy into hook, line, and sinker. This world leader, this one world government who's going to have a one world religion, and they're all going to just buy into it. That's the lie. That's the strong delusion that God is sending. For this cause, God shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie. God is here. Listen to me for a minute. That the lie is not that they're going to buy into this Antichrist who's going to rule the world. God forbid the silliness of the church. God forgive the silliness of the church. The lie, again, your dog, my cat, if you have a dog, and I had a cat, which I don't, but if I did, that cat would know the Antichrist. If there was anybody that were to show up and meet the criteria that the church has propagated throughout the church world, even into the unsaved, where they can tell you who's supposed to be coming, that's not the delusion. Again, your dog Rover's going to know if the Antichrist would show up. He would know. There he is. He's this world leader. Look, he's made a peace treaty with him. Wow, they're getting to rebuild the temple. All this stuff. Sorry, I'm losing it, kind of. Listen, anybody would know. Because we've, no thanks to the church, have been told what to expect. Aren't you getting it? Aren't you getting it? That's not the lie. What we've pushed is the lie. What the belief is on Daniel 9:27 is the lie that we support, that you back, that you propagate. I'm so sorry for telling you this. Listen to me. You don't want to put your money. Now, you don't need to put it with me. If you may not know who to put with, if you don't want to put it with me, put it with, if you don't know of a doctrine, at least don't pick doctrine that's harmful. It's going to be the lie that God uses to cause people to fall away. Do you really want a part of that? Give it to a food bank. Give it to people who help the homeless, who push Jesus, but not who get into the prophetic when they weren't supposed to get it. Talking about the rapture and the prophecies of the end time. Did God really tell you to say these things? I mean, we get off. You know what the graph does? If you want to see the first 9 chapters on a website or go on YouTube, you can see the first 9 chapters of the graph, and you know what you're going to wind up with? Much of truth of the revelation, a lot of revelation you're going to learn. You're going to find out the rapture. The rapture, folks. Do you know how a big deal is? Besides the rest, the rapture. That's a big deal, because right there, people believe this is going to happen, that, and then the rapture and all this other stuff. But sometimes it comes down to we talk to people on the phone. God told me here's when the rapture is going to happen, because they don't have any scripture to figure out when the rapture is going to happen, or because it's so vague, there's nothing really there. And yet, if you get yourself into the graph, you're going to wind up in the end knowing where the rapture is. Scripturally, you'll know that you know that you know. And that's a big deal. Maybe not to you, because now you know it. All I would ask is, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to you? What did it mean to you? Whatever it meant to you, all this truth that no one man could do, it will likely mean the same to somebody else. As the Raven mentioned, it would be nice if you want to have other networks and whatever, get other people to help. You could give $100. Many of you wouldn't even know the difference. So you give 200, 300. Some of that's not even tied to anybody, and you could tithe here, you could give here, and I'm telling you where to go. Right now, I'm so burdened because of where we're at, that I've been burdened for this reason or that, but now we're there. I'm going to show you. By the way, if you want to give to a specific network, make a notation on your givings, folks. Some of you new people, I want to say one last thing. Be careful where you give. Do not give to a lie. When you give to a lie, whether today they're getting somebody saved, eventually that lie, which I'm talking about the belief of here comes the Antichrist, preacher beliefs, and all this other stuff, and there's a whopping amount of it, you want to give to that, God's going to use that. God, for this cause, God shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie. Wipe your hands, wash your hands of it. That doesn't mean give here. I'm trying to help you. Do not back a ministry that's going to be the reason why people eventually fall. You may not be there to explain it to them. I would like to be there, though. And I have the means right now. And you can help. Give, make a notation what if you wanted to give $100 and you want to go to the PTL network, 15 people you can do, 15 and 100 could do it. 15 people out of 2,000 that'll watch this. That's crazy, isn't it? I'm asking for 15 people. And not for me. Not even for you. Just so you know. And if you send money, if there's more than PTL, I want to go on to another network. It's $1,500 a show. That would reach a bunch of people, and that would be directly behind, I believe that one's Sid Roth, and there's another that they're making a way for me to do, but I don't have the means to do it. You folks have the means to do it. If you could do like $500, follow your heart, folks. But be careful where you give. I'm going to show you something that I already did a video on, and I explained it, so I'm not going to explain a lot now, but I want to show you from God something that I've had over a year. About the time I did a video talking about the birth of America, After 5 50-year cycles, 5 50-year cycles, Jubilee cycles, takes you to 2026. Being the independence of America would be July 2026. Not going to talk a lot about this other than to say 5 is the number of grace. I'm not left-handed, so I'm going to try to do this. 5 is the number really that matters is the 5. 5 is the number of grace, but every time there's a 50-year cycle, it is a cycle that remains consistent or constant within it. In other words, if this is going to be a period of grace, if let's say whatever is going on in there, if they deserve judgment, it would happen at the ending of the 50-year cycle. Now, you're either thinking we've reached the last cycle or we got another whole other cycle to go. Danny, if any of you've watched, mentioned at one point he saw grace removed, is what he called it. That's his words, his quote. Grace was removed. He called it grace removed. That's his. I'm going to tell you that's right there too. This ends at the same time where I'm speaking for Danny, but I'm going to say this is where the grace ends too. Grace will be removed here after this 50th cycle. Last time. Grace will be removed at the end of this 50th cycle, right here. I've done several videos where I've talked about precursors and warnings. Hear me for a minute. Here comes the revelation. Something that's from God that I've held for about a year now. Other people can testify until I tell you that I've talked about it before. I just haven't said it because y'all jump on me for different things. I'm going to bring something that is also God. I had an experience years back, the year 2020, because this thing jumped off. Now it sounds silly, but I described it in the video. This 9/11 brochure jumped off of my entertainment center into my lap as far as I could describe it. And I've talked about how precursors, what they do. God gave me the numbers: 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 50. Basically, I said all you do when you do 10, 20, 50, you just add a zero. Just add a zero. So it's 1, 2, 5, 10, 10, 20, 50. The year 2020, I'm talking about how 2021 was going to be a 20-year precursor. And I was believing that it would be the 20th year. But I think if you were to talk to any other Christian, maybe even yourself, you know what America was doing? We were all looking for. It's more than a shot across the bow. We were looking for the judgment to follow because we all knew that was a warning from God. Satan didn't get one in over on God, didn't sneak into America. That was God warning America. And yet what never happened is nothing ever followed. We all went to church. Everybody else went to church, whatever, and they all got out. We were singing Kumbaya for a while, and then all of a sudden we all started being at each other's throats again. Right? Nothing ever followed. I want to point out the number again here to pay attention to is really the number 5, not the 0. In fact, if you were to do, you could actually get, gotta love my writing when I do it in the air. You would have 5 5-year cycles, 5 periods, 5 fives. Again, grace in your face, a cycle that would end in 2026 from 9/11/2001. And I would tell you that would be the period, the extended period of grace that God has given us. And I'm going to tell you it is. I was wrong that it was not the 20th year. No, God's doing another same thing. It's just instead of it being 50, 5 50s, it's 5 5s. Still points you to 2026. I've held this for a while. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe 9/11 was a fluke. It really was a precursor. As I saw, the only thing I got stupid and I tried to put a number on it. But if it's the same as grace in your face, America's warning will be over after 5 5s. Not 5 more 50s, but 5 5s. Now you're only going to hear that here, just like you only heard the 250-year cycle thing here. Now I'm not saying other people aren't starting to say 2026, but it's only because God told them. I'm trying to give you godlike, characteristics of how He works and what I see. I know I had an experience from God. I know who this guy is. And I want to give it to other people, and I now can affect change on these other ministries to where YouTube won't, but if I can plop my show right down in front of theirs or right after theirs, which is what I did last time, all these ministries had to stand to attention, and the bickering, the warfare appropriately happened. Some people made changes, other people did not. In the end, it's all about the following, but the ministers will have to give answer to what they teach too. I could use your prayers big time. I could use your support. You folks are enough here to make it happen. 1% of you, 20 people could help. 20 people could, if they, again, could not only get me on the Jim Bakker PTL network, and every minister would have to acknowledge End Time Insights, including Jim Bakker, considering I'll be right after his program. Not also on Impact. There's more, but I need your help. I need your help. Hope you see the revelation. I'll explain more later. There is more. That came out of my little iPad notebook that I have. I have this an iPad that has all these notes I've been talking about that I've been holding. That's one of them. Pray about giving here. You'll affect other people, and I'll go. You don't have to go, I'll go. Look for more to come. Until next time, take care and God bless.